What's going on in the country? Why is it that we're being forced into a vaccine that really doesn't work the way it was touted? Why are they continuing to change the goalposts on us? Why are the rules always changing, and why are people being forced into doing something that they don't want to do and don't need to do in many cases? Why do you want to put a jab in my arm? I have a healthy immune system. Why do you want to put a jab in my arm? I already had COVID. These are the questions we're going to look to answer today. Dr. Malone is with us. He knows vaccines and drugs as well as anybody else. Strap in. This is a show you're not going to want to miss.
Why aren't the people in Washington putting themselves in harm's way? Why aren't they walking the walk as well as talking the talk? Their position in Washington is to do the will of the people. I don't see anybody in Washington doing the will of the people anymore. The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I am DML, and you are listening to the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast. The exclusive sponsor of this program is DMLCBD.com. Go there today and get the best CBD products that can make you feel great again. This podcast is for independent thinkers who want to recapture the great American experience, and they know it all starts with sharing the unfiltered facts, truth, and opinions I give you every day. Today's podcast will both shine a light on the solutions that can fix our nation's biggest problems, and it will make you the smartest person in the room. Here we go.
So, Doctor, I would like you, if you were in an elevator and you had to tell somebody exactly what you've done, what you do, and why you have so much specialization to your name. Explain to my audience here what it is that you've done as a doctor.
Hi, my name is Robert Malone. I'm a physician scientist. I'm licensed to practice medicine in the state of Maryland. I have a 30-year history of working on developing vaccines and vaccine technology and gene therapy technology. And then after 9/11, transitioning to what we call advanced development, which is the whole suite of tools and information and knowledge required to bring a product forward from discovery research to licensure. So I have deep expertise and training in regulatory affairs, clinical development, project management, all the things that you need in order to manage teams to bring products forward. I had a series of discoveries when I was a young man at the Salk Institute in the molecular biology and virology laboratories that form the platform basis for what we now call RNA and DNA vaccines. But I've done many other things. My wife and I have the core patent, or had the core patent on mucosal polynucleotide vaccines. We developed a lot of the core technology that is behind Inovio and did the original incorporation on that. And these days, mostly I assembled teams largely for the government to solve complicated problems in the area of pandemic response and vaccine development, and also drug repurposing. So I have 3 clinical trials about to start involving the repurposed drugs that we've identified: famotidine and celecoxib. And one team that I'm involved with coaching in India is about to launch clinical trials on their 2nd generation SARS-CoV-2 vaccine in India, which is a protein-based vaccine. So I'm odd in that I span the whole scope of discovery research through all the tools that are needed to bring a product to market.
Okay, so my short way of saying it is you're an absolute guru when it comes to drugs and vaccines. Is that fair?
Okay, I wouldn't say it that way, but thanks. I'll take it.
All right, I'll put it this way. I mean, you're. Would you say that you're the Derek Jeter of vaccine?
I don't know.
Are you a Derek you a Derek Jeter? Are you the
it's good enough.
All right, there you go. I mean,
Yeah,
Derek Jeter's a great shortstop. May not be the best shortstop of all time, but he's one of the best. So
that's kind. Yeah, I'll take the analogy. But this is what I do. I work deeply with the government and have for years and years. I've won or managed over $8 billion in government grants and contracts. I sit on, various government study sections and review boards and all that kind of stuff. I kind of get the government. But originally I was a farmer and a carpenter. So I guess I'm a little odd in that my feet are on the ground more than some academics, let's say.
Okay. So now I'm going to tell you something about myself, and then we're going to be able to ask you some really good, hard-hitting questions where hopefully the audience comes away and saying, thank God we had this interview. So I like to position myself as a guy who is no bullshit. All right. And I can smell something when it's misfiring. And when it's misfiring, I like to believe I have the sort of tools and wisdom to where I could sort of dig and get the truth. With that being said, I think it's very important for me to say at the outset here, I am not anti-vax. I am pro anything that will help people. And in my 52 years, I've seen a lot. I always refer to 9/11 because I lived 9/11. I ran from those buildings. And so when I hear crockpots say that 9/11 was an inside job, those people better not say it in front of my face, because I have friends and family who were negatively impacted by 9/11. I've been negatively impacted by 9/11. I don't like to fly because of what I watched happen on that day. And it pisses me off to think that anybody would say something so conspiracy-like and so stupid. I get really pissed off with things like that. So I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I don't like nut jobs. I don't subscribe to the QAnon, none of that crap. I'm just a common sense guy. And in my 52 years, doctor, I have never seen more ridiculousness than I've seen in the last 2 years. And I'm saying, what the hell has happened, not only to my country, but to this planet? And what bothers me even more is that when I look at these vaccines that are out, whether it's Moderna or J&J or whoever the hell it is that you have, Pfizer, what doesn't make sense to me is that we now have a vaccine that I don't really think is working at the way that in which it was touted to work. We have various new, the Delta variant coming up, and we're having people have to lose their jobs. They're having to decide whether to get jabbed or not get jabbed. And if they don't get jabbed, they are criminalized, as far as I'm concerned, in the public eye by the administration and by the mainstream media. They are criticized by those who are vaccinated and saying, oh, you unvaccinated people, you're the ones who are causing death. And I've never seen anything so stupid in my life for something that is not proving to work at the level that they're saying it should and would work. I mean, we are seeing breakthrough cases. We're seeing people die. I've interviewed people on here who have had parents die after having the shot or the booster. And it doesn't seem right to me. I just feel like there's something under the covers that nobody is really talking about. And if you do try to talk about, all of a sudden you're getting taken down from YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And I have interviewed a lot of doctors on this program, all the next more credible than the next one. And they're telling me about how it is that they've got their videos taken down because they won't agree with the vaccine, or because they ask questions about masking, or whatever it may be. And so I'm trying like the Dickens to find out what the hell is going on here. So with that being said, I don't feel good about what's happening with these vaccines. And so the first thing I say to you, is a guy who is, a guru in vaccines and drugs and bringing them to market, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Where do you stand on this? Because right now I'm looking at my country and I can't figure out where it's gone.
So, by the way, I was in Manhattan about a week and a half after the planes hit the towers. I remember the dust and I remember the stench.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
I was also living in Rockville when the planes hit the Pentagon and the jets were flying overhead. And then I also remember the anthrax attacks very well. So I'm with you on all that.
Okay.
And I'm also totally with you on to the extent that I've been dragged into against my will, but into some of these theories about the why question that everybody's asking, which is essentially what you're asking. This has troubled me for months now. Probably a year. It was posed in the Dark Horse podcast with Brett and Steve, and it's chronically on my mind ever since.
When you say this, what's this? What's troubling? What part is troubling you the most?
The why. What is going on behind all this?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what's happened to our country, in my opinion, what we have is corruption. We have profound, deep corruption through the whole HHS structure.
Health and human services. It's
systemic, and it's been developing for a long time. And your listenership may find this shocking. I find it shocking. I find the whole thing. I trying to get in tune with my feelings. It's a sense of umbrage of that. I feel personally offended that my profession and my work has been employed in this way that for some agenda it has been distorted, and the norms of my profession that I've had to learn over 30 years have just been totally disregarded.
Give me an example.
The most egregious one for me is that they completely disregard what's called the common rule, which is the embodiment in federal law of the whole course of bioethics since the Nuremberg trials, that fundamentally says that people have a right to know the risks and benefits of any agent that they take, but particularly an experimental one, that those risks have to be described, and they have to understand those risks fully. They have to be described in common language, and they must accept the agent voluntarily. They cannot be coerced, compelled, or enticed. Enticed means, free ice cream for the kiddies or whatever the heck.
Right.
I mean, that they've just, in my opinion, from what I've seen, HHS has become lawless. They are no longer constrained by the law. They will do whatever they want to do. They justify the lies in their own minds, apparently, by saying that, in their opinion, it's for the common good. You hear these words coming out of Tony Fauci's mouth, in which he acknowledges, in one case, he said, he was confronted by, well, you said it's going to take 70% vaccine uptake, then it's going to take 80% of vaccine uptake, then it's going to take 90%. Well, Dr. Fauci, why, I'm paraphrasing, why have you continually changed the goalposts? And what he basically said was, well, I thought the public wasn't ready to hear the truth. That's a flat out lie.
Mm.
I mean, he lies all the time. There's no other way to say it.
Why do you think he lies? Why do you think he lies all the time?
So that requires that I become a psychoanalyst.
Okay.
And which is not my core specialty.
Right.
But the man seems to be decoupled from reality. He seems to think, as often happens. So what I think has happened with Tony Fauci is the same thing that happened with J. Edgar Hoover. The man has been in power in the federal government for way too long, and he's amassed a whole power structure. He's the highest paid federal employee. He controls an enormous budget, and he retaliates to people. He has managed to scare and manipulate the press and the entire HHS bureaucracy and bend it to his will. And basically, he is a little god. He is able to speak whatever comes into his mind. It doesn't have to be fact-based. And the government will act on that as if he is an emperor, a petty dictator. And that's really what he is a petty dictator over the whole HHS structure, has been for a long time, and we've tolerated it. And Congress has tolerated it. In Congress, if you go back, there's a bunch of key hearings where he's confronted by people like our own Specter over time and called out, and it goes back to the days of AIDS and just extends to the present. He lies to Congress all the time to get money. Basically, what he does is sort of the same pump and dump scheme. That, I mean, if you're I take it you're in New York and probably Manhattan-based from what you just said, and you certainly understand Wall Street and the stock market, I suspect.
Of course I do.
And I know how investors and momentum traders can be moved by all kinds of statements to cause them to start buying stock, and the various manipulation schemes around it. Basically, Tony does the same game, but he does it with Congress instead of doing it with the street. And he gets Congress, he intimidates Congress. You've seen it with Rand Paul and other things.
Sure.
His umbrage. He's so offended by Rand Paul calling him out for lying about the gain of function mutations, when in fact, then the data comes out, and then we know that he has been funding the gain of function mutations. And what he does is a great little distraction trick that he's learned, like many in DC have, where he'll then drop some new news, some shiny object that causes the press to become distracted over the thing and focus on something else, whatever the particular crisis is in the moment. So Tony has built himself an empire. He is a little emperor. He controls academia. He controls the journals are his beck and call, and part of the way he's done it.
You mean the medical journals?
Correct.
Yep.
And part of how he's done it is by aligning himself really closely with the commercial interests associated with the pharmaceutical industry. So he's their boy.
Yep.
If for your listenership, this is a problem we have now throughout the whole government. And I'm just going to give a couple examples. So let's start with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. USDA has a dual function. They're there to promote the agriculture business, the industry, as well as to regulate it. And so what do we end up with? Multiple heads of USDA are former senior Monsanto executives, all the way back as far as the eye can see practically. Then the next case that your listeners will know about, remember 737 MAX? We all forgot about that.
You're talking about 737 MAX is the airplanes that had issues from Boeing, right?
Correct. And once you got into how did that fiasco happen, the answer is regulatory capture of the Federal Aviation Administration by Boeing. What we've got is profound and deep capture by the pharmaceutical industry of the entire health and human services infrastructure. So, what practically you see in it, the FDA, a decision was made. Somehow the lobbyists got the government to believe, and got the people to believe, that it was in their interest to transfer the costs of regulation and regulatory oversight for drugs and vaccines to the pharmaceutical industry. So now the pharmaceutical industry pays the FDA to regulate the pharmaceutical industry. Well, you know how that goes. Okay. And then the other example is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention regarding vaccines have two mandates. One is to ensure the safety of vaccines. The other is to promote vaccination. And by the way, promoting vaccination is a lot more highly funded than regulating the safety. So we end up with the people that are supposed to be looking at these databases are grossly underfunded. They can't do their job. They can't keep up with the data. And the people who are supposed to be promoting vaccines and selling them to us are very highly funded. So what do we get out of that? We get promotion of the interests of the vaccines industry. And I speak as a vaccinologist, okay? But you asked, how did we get here? What we have is profound, deep corruption. It's built around regulatory capture, but it's so much more than that now, because they've not just, the pharmaceutical industry generates so much money in the United States. We pay a lot more for our drugs than the rest of the world does. And that money gets recycled back to, basically by politicians. So the whole stack from top to bottom is owned. And that's how we get to where we are.
Let's talk about the vaccine for 1 second. The vaccine in the sense of how it works and how it doesn't work. This thing is being touted as, well, first it was being touted as, you take it, you won't get sick. Then when we saw that didn't work, it was you take it and you don't have to worry about hospitalization. When that didn't work, now it's you take it and you don't have to worry about death. You said before, and I thought it was a good term, they keep moving the goalposts and they keep changing the rules. And when they do that, I think people like myself continue to lose any sort of trust in.
Well, let's. You said that you speak plainly.
Yeah.
So let's speak plainly. You smell a rat.
Something doesn't. Yeah. The rat is out there, and the rat being out there is. There's one thing to smell a rat. There's another thing to see a rat. So
and this is a big rat.
Yeah, and I can't miss the rat.
This is a Baltimore wharf rat.
There you go. Yeah, and the problem is that the rat is causing massive disruption. So now you've got
disruption. The estimates are that the rat has caused excess death through suppression of existing agents for early treatment. Excess death in the United States, north of 500,000 people. Let's call it. You said you speak plainly.
Yeah.
Let's speak plainly.
Yeah.
Okay. People are dying because of the pharmaceutical industry's manipulation through Tony Fauci of the entire HHS infrastructure.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And so when you look at the vaccine itself, I mean, you're a guru with the vaccines and the drugs. This vaccine, I mean, it got pushed through, and we don't know what the long-term side effects are going to be. We do know that it's not working at the level where they said it was going to work. Do you believe in this vaccine?
So a strong case can be made, and this is basically, I mean, when you get down to it, there's regulatory law. There's federal law around a lot of this stuff that's being disregarded. But a strong case can be made that these are actually should not be classified as vaccines at this point.
Okay.
If you take what HHS is saying through the CDC and Dr. Fauci, that's, in other words, the government's own words. You're now in a position where the director of the CDC is acknowledging that these vaccines will not stop infection.
Right. And
as you pointed out, they're modified limited hangout, because that's what it is, right? This is classic DC strategy. Is you create this series of modified limited hangouts. These are, by the way, this is language and strategy developed by the CIA, just to say it. You create this modified limited hangout, and then you shift the goalpost, just like you said. We're now in a position where they're asserting you should take the jab because it will prevent you from serious disease. They're acknowledging it won't protect you from infection, which blows the whole logic of the mandates right out the window.
Yep.
But they don't care. Because they just don't care. They don't care about logic. They care about power, and they care about enforcing their will. And I think there's also a certain amount of covering of one's backside, to put it gently.
Sure.
But in terms of the technical language here, when you say that the product is only administered to prevent disease or to mitigate a health risk, not to prevent infection, a case can be made that it's a therapeutic. It's not a vaccine. It's some sort of prophylactic therapeutic.
Yep.
Like, for instance, taking ivermectin chronically is asserted to be prophylactic, but it's not a vaccine. That's really what these vaccines are. Is they're a biologic that you can take that might reduce your risk of hospitalization and severe disease or death. But they're actually work not very good at that.
And by the way, doctor, if you take it and you have a problem with it, you got nobody to sue because it's emergency use only.
So this is well put, and then there's the whole shell game of the licensure that isn't a licensure for a product that isn't available. And Pfizer and BioNTech have apparently no timeline for when Comirnaty will be available. So there's that whole shell game that's going on. The levels of deception are just so profound and deep. And now, of course, they're trying to sell us on the Merck drug, which was originally developed in Emory under DoD funding for a whole different purpose, in which India stopped the trials because it was so toxic. And so now Merck, out of the kindness of their heart, it's amazing how magnanimous Merck is. They're going to share the formulation for EIDD28, funded by the government to develop, by the way. So you and I paid for that drug, and Merck now is graciously going to share that with underdeveloped countries, poor countries. It's really convenient that Merck is doing that now that the cat's out of the bag, that the thing is enormously toxic. But we've seen that movie before also. I'm a little depressed, frankly, about what it's like. The subterfuge is that the flesh is off the bread. The reveal that we've had over the last 2 years of how deeply corrupted the whole health and human services infrastructure is profoundly disillusioning for me. I kind of don't know where I go with my career at this point, because all the things that I thought were true, that I had been trained were true and required, the steps necessary to make a safe and effective vaccine, the rules about clinical research, about not breaking the blind, about ensuring the ethical treatment of human subjects. They're all just thrown out the door. They don't care. And they're fighting tooth and nail to keep anything about these various manipulation and subterfuge that they've done from being disclosed in court. But this is going to come out. I'm in touch with a lot of lawyers, and I just, as a New Yorker, you'll appreciate, I was just there. I stayed in the TWA hotel, which is bloody awesome. And I spent the day testifying in rabbinical court before the Hasidic Jews, and they're onto this. They are not amused by what's going on, and the young ones are radicalized. It's just a question now of getting the senior rabbinum on board, but they're morally and as well as technically, they're very aware of the corruption and all of these disconnects that you're talking about.
The problem as I see it, it's funny you say that you don't know where to go with your career. I think that's a widespread feeling. I think people don't know where to go with their lives at this point. I mean, think of all the people who are literally losing their jobs because they won't get vaccinated.
It is so. These people talk to me and come to me and actually visit my farm and present me with examples of the adverse events. Yesterday, I was with Thomas Rentz for most of the day. The other testimony was provided by Zoom, and he was talking. He's just constantly bombarded by the cases of people that have been damaged by the products,
by the vaccines and the boosters.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And he's furious. But here's a funny thing: Thomas Rentz is,
for the listeners who don't know who Thomas Rentz is, explain.
He's an Ohio attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and basically he's the equivalent of a country doc
Mm-hmm.
that took on some cases early on because other lawyers wouldn't.
Right.
And then his practice has exploded.
Yes.
He's not making much money right now, but he has got a huge slew of cases.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me some stories about what's happening on the legal side. Basically, whenever a big law firm gets engaged in a way that's contrary to the interests of the pharma on these vaccines, they suddenly get bought out. They get a big contract from pharma to do something else, and they drop the case. So none of the major law firms will get involved in this, either because of their political affiliation or because they have very strict policies about conflict of interest. And the pharmaceutical industry is playing this to its advantage. It's coming in and dangling big, juicy legal work so that the big firms then have a COI and they can't take any of these vaccine damage cases.
Right.
So it's ending up in small independent lawyers that are then aggregating. And Thomas Rentz has found himself at the tip of the spear of this, but he's now one of many lawyers all across the United States that are working these cases. In particular, the military cases are amazing. And then there's all the cases relating to these various industries. And notable in that is the aviation industry, where the pilots are basically putting down their foot and saying, apparently, there's something about the altitude changes that pilots go through that may be triggering their clots more frequently than the average Joe just walking around on the street.
Yeah, I just had a pilot on here the other day who's leading a group called U.S. Freedom Flyers, and Josh Yoder is his name. And so we were talking about all that. So the audience is completely familiar with that. With that said, let me just change channels for 1 second here, because I'm looking at the time. I mean, I could talk to you for 4 hours, but unfortunately, I don't have 4 hours. So with that being said, when you look at something like ivermectin and how it is that the media has gone into claiming it is a, horse dewormer, and
that was particularly egregious, wasn't it?
It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, why would you do?
No, it does make sense.
Okay.
It is raw power. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. What we have relied on. And this is another one of those. The floor has been pulled out from under me, and I don't know how far I'm going to fall. Mm-hmm. Once upon a time, I believe the media was mostly giving me real news and telling the truth. And then along came Trump, and he created this whole trope of fake news, and we all laughed about that. Oh, it's just Trump, it's his strategy. And then this comes along, and I experience directly the manipulation of information and the propaganda and the hunting of physicians by the press and the politicians. Any physician that speaks against the dominant narrative that's approved becomes hunted, and they threaten his license. They never take it away, by the way, but they destroy physicians' practices through this to suppress any discussion. And the media now is owned.
Yes.
And how are they owned? This gets to the big why. And the gentlest way to put the big why is that, remember back in the day, we had this thing called the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up the big money that was controlling American politics and everything else. And then over time, we decided, well, we're just going to turn a blind eye to that. We're now in a situation where capital, you're in Manhattan, so we can talk about these things. I'm not in Manhattan.
I'm not in Manhattan. I'm now in Florida, but I'm very familiar with everything Manhattan based.
Okay. Good. Well, bless you. I'm going to be in Ocala soon, mm-hmm. on the 6th. So money has become decoupled from nation states. There's like 4 major investment firms that virtually control all the capital worldwide. And they are no longer affiliated with any one country. They're national. And, it's best to think of the pharmaceutical companies and the press that we know, the mainstream media and big tech, etc., as really all divisions of one company. And they behave like divisions of one company. They're not separate companies. And so it's no surprising that all of this is coordinated messaging. The other thing that's happened is that there's been a series of war games performed under World Economic Forum and Gates funding, etc., largely in a structure at Johns Hopkins that has strong CIA influence, in which people have been brought in, people like Justin Trudeau and Gavin Newsom from the state of California, the governor, and many others all over the world, and trained in these war games for how to respond to a pandemic. And they've had some core assumptions in these war games that the pathogen was highly lethal, like Ebola, that the vaccine was effective, and that there were no existing drugs to treat it. And they've got these folks together and run these scenarios and basically created a battle plan. And now they're in that battle plan, for some reason, in every one of these scenarios, has ended up with the need to impose authoritarian control on the population. And they're just playing that battle plan in lockstep. Now, you think this is a crazy conspiracy, but you can go on the Johns Hopkins website, look it up, and you read what they've said in their war games, and you say, good heavens, this is exactly what's happening. They're right on schedule. And in my mind, what's happened is that they built this battle plan for a pathogen, by the way, that doesn't exist. This is not a highly lethal pathogen, right? Your risk of, as an average person, and certainly as a child, your risk, unless you have some major pre-existing condition as a child, your risk from this virus is essentially zero.
Zero, yeah.
The kids shrug it off. The adults, their risk of hospitalization and death is a fraction of percent. All the risk is in the elders and in those that are immunocompromised or morbidly obese. Unfortunately, we got a lot of those in the United States, chewing up their hamburgers.
Yep.
But that you don't need to be afraid of this. But they ran these scenarios envisioning something like Ebola in terms of the threat level. They come to this point where they feel like they got to use authoritarian measures to jab everybody to save the world from this pathogen which doesn't exist. And anybody skilled in the art of war knows that your battle plan only works until you actually encounter the enemy, and then you find out the ground truth and you have to adapt. What they've done in this bunch of geniuses is they've never gone back and reevaluated their assumptions. They've never modified their battle plan. They're just all in lockstep saying this is what we have to do next. And we're the victims from this crazy scheme. I mean, this is the problem with having B-level intellects running things.
Oh, sure. Look, at this point, I think that the media is having so much fun with this. They're making so much money off this. I'll give you a prime example. You got monoclonal antibodies, right? And CNN ran an article 2 days ago about how it is that most doctors don't even know about monoclonal antibodies, and that if they do know about it, they don't even know where to send people to go get them. Now, with that being said, I can show you a map here in Florida of all the different places where you could go and get monoclonal antibodies. And yet CNN never mentioned Florida one time.
CNN is bought and sold. They are a big part of the problem, and no surprise, their viewership, which is the metric by which all these folks measure their worth, is in the tank.
Yes, but here's where you're mistaken on that, doctor. So I want to stop you before we go down a slippery slope on that, because you are the guru to vaccine. I am the guru to media. So let me explain to you why it is that they are more powerful than most people recognize. And I blame Fox News and Trump for doing the misleading information about CNN. So let me finish out this statement.
Go ahead.
So when you look at Florida, what's the big thing about Florida other than the heat and the nice weather is Ron DeSantis. And Ron DeSantis, as far as I'm concerned, is lined up to be the next president of the United States. He's got every...
You and I are aligned.
Okay.
Whatever I think of Ron DeSantis personally,
Yeah.
his past history, I put this out on Twitter about a month ago. I said, this guy is going to be the next president.
He is.
Everybody thought that was an endorsement.
No,
it was just a statement of fact.
It's a statement of fact. Here's why. And again, this is my ballywick. So, Ron DeSantis is Donald Trump, only better. He does not have the gaffes. He doesn't need the social media attention. He's not prone to saying one thing and then changing his mind the next minute.
I think he's also smarter.
Oh, he's 10 times smarter. He's 10 times smarter politically. He's 10 times smarter just in general. And the way that he has managed Florida through all this, including the monoclonal antibodies and how he set up all the centers for that. And in the same way that
profound leadership.
Yeah. The same way that you say, we got to take care of the elderly first. That's the way he approached it. Very common sense. So he is a danger to the Democrats because they realize that at some point, all these Trumpsters.
Agreed. And you can see it in how they're covering him. And also you can see it in how they're not covering him.
Thank you. So with that being said, when you look at CNN, for example, yes, if you look at Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and Sean Hannity, and you manage that and measure it against MSNBC, Maddow, and then of course CNN is in the tank. But here's the thing: when you look at all digital, and you got to remember, cable television is a dying breed when compared to overall consumption of news, and the overall consumption of news is the internet and apps and things of that nature. I mean, you can't walk through
and by the way, and podcasts.
Right. You can't
podcasts are the kryptonite.
You can't walk through an airport without seeing a CNN broadcast. So the same thing happens on digital media. When you've got digital media, you got Anderson Cooper saying something blatantly stupid on television. Only 800,000 people saw it compared to Tucker Carlson's 3 million. But then when you put it out on the internet, CNN is kicking ass. CNN.com beats the living crap out of FoxNews.com every single month. So there is a consumption of CNN-like product, whether it's New York Times, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's whatever liberal left-leaning. So
I'm with you.
And so now when you look at that, the information that's being put out by CNN and others like them has become toxic because it's so far out there and everybody's believing it. Now, when you take the next level of that, where do conservatives actually have a stronghold? They have it on Facebook. When you look at Facebook, I'll give you, this is very interesting. You should look this up. There's a guy from the New York Times. I cannot remember his name right now. But for the last 2 years, he has been every single day managing the top 10 most viral posts on Facebook. And every single day he posts it to Twitter. And every single day, I've made it up there a couple of times, but every single day, without question, it's Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Fox News, Dinesh D'Souza, Dennis Michael Lynch. It's always these names. And so what's happened is they figured out that the way that we're getting our messaging out, other than Fox News, is through Facebook. And that's why they're beating the crap out of Facebook right now. It's for no other reason that they realize that the last strong platform for conservative messaging and for the truth, as far as I'm concerned, in many ways, is Facebook. And that's why they want to take them down. You take Facebook out of the equation, Doctor, and we're going to have ourselves a huge challenge in getting things out as far as conservatives and center right goes.
And so for my sector, we've already given up on Facebook and YouTube. They are completely worthless. If we just mention vaccine, we're deleted. We've just abandoned it. So I guess the world that I live in and the people that I associate with and the kind of information we're trying to get out, we're already experiencing your reality of tomorrow.
Of course.
And the subtext to what you're saying, you haven't said the words yet. We're in a 21st century media war like the world has never seen before. The battle landscape has changed. And it's about media and information. It's Marshall McLuhan's worst nightmare. We're living it.
Look, Doctor, my entire life, 52 years old, and I know you're gonna agree with what I say here. I always tell this story, and I'll keep it short because we're running low on time. My daughter was 6, 7 years old. She was having an incredible amount of UTIs as a little girl. And it was concerning to us, obviously. So we took her to one doctor, and the doctor said, you need to have an operation. You have to have it now. If you don't, she's not going to be able to have children maybe when she gets older. I said, wow, that's kind of extreme here. She's 6 years old. We went to another doctor. Doctor said, oh, it's 50-50 about having the operation. I don't necessarily say that you need to have it, but you may want to get it. We went to a third guy, and the third guy said, I'm telling you, I could give you medication and this will go away and your daughter will have no problem whatsoever. You don't have to go under the knife. Obviously, that third doctor gave us what we wanted to hear, and we went with that third doctor, and it turns out to be my daughter, knock on wood, is a very healthy girl today. With that said, it has always been the practice of going to get a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. Nowadays, there is no of that. It's one opinion, Anthony Fauci and anybody who aligns with him, that's the opinion. And if you are Dr. Malone or if you're anybody else, if you're two doctors from California that say, hey, wait a second, we've been studying immunology forever, this doesn't make sense to us. If you're any doctor with any common sense and you want to give a differing opinion, you are censored and shut down. And to me, if you look at
worse than that, you're censored, shut down, and threatened with losing your livelihood.
There you go. And you add it to that. So when I look at all the different, if we were detectives and we would put all the evidence up on the board and try to find the hot gun, if you will, what's the big thing there? I would say that of all, you can talk about the money. Oh, this is all about money. Oh, this is all about power. This is all about whatever it is. The number one thing for me that has always jumped out is saying, wait a second, we've got credible doctors, we've got credible, MDs, we've got credible people who understand everything.
Peter McCullough.
McCullough. I've had him on the show. Peter McCullough. You can take all the people, yourself, Peter McCullough, all these different people, you can take them, you could put them in a room, and you cannot even start to get through all the documentation, all the diplomas that you guys, all the everything that you've written. And the fact that they've shut you down, that to me says there's something bigger here than anybody right now realizes. And I don't know, I've heard some of your opinions here. Is it the money? I don't think it's the money, doctor. I'll tell you why, because there's a lot of money out there and you could always make a lot of money. And these drug companies have always been making a ton of money and it's never going to stop. Is it China? Is it one world order? I don't know what it is, but I'll tell you right now, this country and the entire world is not spinning correctly. And I think the only way to stop it, and I'll give you the last word on this, I think the only way to stop it is the way that Josh Yoder and those pilots are stopping it. You want to force this? I ain't flying the planes. You shut down industries, you shut down schools, you shut down the military, and you will watch immediately this country take an about face. But the problem is that nobody's doing it because everybody's scared to death of what will happen to them. Will I lose my job? Will I lose my home? Will the government come after me? I mean, people are scared shitless. That's the best way of saying it. Last word goes to you, doctor.
It's a failure of courage. Okay. And people talk about 1776 and the spirits of the founders of this country. And that seems like crazy Proud Boy talk. But those people are inspirations. I live here just a few miles from Jefferson's home and Madison's home, etc. These were farmer legislators, citizens, and they didn't truck the bullshit. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's stand up or forever be a serf, my friends. Mm. And I've put my career on the line, and so have a lot of other doctors. And we need help. The other thing I just want to say to your audience, Delta Plus is coming. It's already in Hawaii pretty strong. It's moving through us. There's a reasonable chance, and I don't mean to spread fear. There's a reasonable chance we're going to see another surge, no matter how many jabs people take, come this latter in this winter. And I think that we're in a situation where the only solution available for common person is local solutions, community-based solutions.
What do you mean by that? Give a little detail on that. I got another minute here. What do you mean by it? So you're saying Delta Plus, another variant's coming. You think that variant's going to come in the winter. I agree with you 100%. And what we're saying is the only way to keep yourself safe or keep yourself, treated is locally. What do you mean by that?
I think that we can no longer rely on our standard medical system and most of the docs in the hospitals that somehow have been co-opted to believe that the only way to treat this disease is you come to the hospital and you're not sick enough, you get sent back home to get sick, and then you come to the hospital with your lungs trashed and you die.
Right.
That's kind of the way things are right now. And the only way that we're going to get around that is for people to build communities like I was just advising the Hasidic Jews. You got to build local community, make early treatment available. You have to set up networks so that you can stay in touch with people, so the old people and the sick people don't end up dying alone at home. They're being checked on. Make sure that they've got availability to drugs. And in some of these communities, people are coming together and buying pulse oximeters and other things like this, getting these early therapy treatments out into their community so people can take them as soon as possible. And another key thing is get your vitamin D level checked. This is the simplest thing you can do right now. Get your vitamin D level checked, and by God, get it up to the snuff before this thing hits you. It isn't effective to do it after you get the disease. You got to get the vitamin D on board now. So get prepared. Don't be afraid. Just be focused and work to make sure that you've got community-based solutions that include communication and information. So that the big pandemic we've also got is not the virus, it's the fear. You point out the press and the power of the press and what's driving the press and the clicks and the advertising revenue. It's fear.
Yep.
They love the fear. Fear works for them.
If it bleeds, it leads.
And don't play into it. Okay. You don't have to be afraid. Just get prepared, be serious, and do the stuff that is going to save you and your community and your elders and the people at high risk. And frankly, like the Nordic states have already decided, we're never going to get away from this damn thing. We have to live with it. And so buckle down, put on your big boy pants and get to work.
Boosting the immune system is a smart play, I believe. And I think, what you just said there about the vitamin D and things of that nature, I think it's a very smart play. I'm not a doctor, but it's one that I've heard time and time again in the people that I've talked to on this program. Dr. Malone, real quick, with less than 30 seconds, if people want to learn more about you and anything you're writing or putting out, where would they go?
So there's 3 different platforms. My Twitter account is, I'd love to push it over 500,000 because frankly, that's power. That is what keeps the press from biting my ankles too much. So that's at RW Malone MD. And if there's other shadow accounts, Twitter isn't giving me the blue label, but there aren't any other RW Malone MDs with 420,000 followers or whatever the number is. So there's that. There's our website, which is standard www.rwmalonemd.com. And then there's the website of the new organization of physicians and scientists that has big, you believe you're a media guru. We've got some serious media guru and major money behind it. And you'll find it growing as a portal. It's called globalcovidsummit.org. That's where the Declaration of Physicians' Right to Practice is located. And there's a whole bunch of curated content there. And it's designed it's physicians talking to physicians.
What's that website? One more time. You sort of broke up on when you said that.
It's globalcovidsummit.org. So global, COVID summit.org.
Okay.
And that's built in a platform called Roundtable, where everything there is hosted. It's built so that the Googles and YouTubes and Facebooks and all of that stuff can't take it down.
Oh, great.
And so the video streaming and everything is within the platform of Roundtable.
Great.
So there's a ton more curated content, podcast, video. And the other thing, if I can advise your viewers, follow the lead of our host here. The podcast is the the disruptive technology that will eventually take down major media.
Oh, I believe that. Yep.
It is amazingly powerful and disruptive. And don't sit around on your hands. Build a podcast, build a following, get information out. You have a voice. Your voice is just as important as mine is. I just happen to be a specialist in some of these things. But the podcast is the way we break major media. And so get to it.
Doctor, it was a pleasure. I appreciate it. We'd love to have you back in the future. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right, Doctor. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. I mean, look, I've had no shortage of doctors on this program over the last couple of weeks, and it seems like they're all saying the same thing, whether they're virologists, whether they're vaccine experts, whether they're, specialized in the immune system. Everybody's saying the same thing. And it doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. Something's going to break here along the way. I don't know what it is, but something's going to break. It may be the human spirit. It may be the opposite. It may be frustration. I don't know. Something's going to break. They're not going to be able to continue to take people's lives away from them, both literally and figuratively. When you make somebody give up their job that they've had for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and believe me, there are people. I mean, my wife was just talking to me about a Team DML member who we've actually become friends with. And, she communicates back and forth with this one particular woman. I'm not going to say her name is. I haven't had the permission to say it. But she has been working at the VA for the longest time. And if she doesn't get the jab, she's done. And she doesn't want to get the jab. And I know this woman, and I can tell you that she's principled, and she's going to stand up, and she ain't gonna bow down. You're flipping this good woman who has served in the U.S. military, by the way. You are flipping her life upside down for absolute bullshit nonsense. And I apologize for the profanity, but there's no other way of saying it. It's bullshit. Look, we just got to keep on sharing, and you just got to keep on marching forward. And that's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. That's it from me. Real quick, as always, teamdml.com. You could see the videos here. We're working on it. We keep on improving things. I probably need another week, and we'll have this thing down lickety-split. But you can see the video here now, right? That's great. For those of you who aren't teamdml.com and you think that you'd rather see it than hear it, go to teamdml.com. Yes, it's going to cost you a membership, but listen, it is what it is. And if you're okay with just listening to it for free, well, then keep on going. DML CBD, it's very important. We just talked about the importance of boosting the immune system. Let me tell you about DML CBD right now, what's happening. I say this to you all the time, but I'm always giving the new reminder here for you. DMLCBD.com/mint, M-I-N-T. The DML CBD mints were something that we launched about a year ago because we had so many people say, I can't afford the other products you have. And I understand, listen, I'm not going to be able to sell a Ferrari at a Pinto price. You just can't. And we have Ferraris when it comes to DML CBD. So we figured out, hey, the mint, that is something that we can sell for a lower price. So DMLCBD.com/mint. Not only is it a lower price, not only do you get great CBD, but we're doing a buy one, get one free, which ends on October 31st. Now, this is the last product in the lineup of products that we have that we've offered the BOGO on. When October 31st comes, there will be no more BOGO for the remainder of this year. And I don't know how long until next year because this whole supply chain manufacturing delay stuff, it's impacting everybody, including us. So DMLCBD.com/mint, buy one, get one free. If you're low on funds, this is the best way to get into the great world of DML CBD, boosting the immune system, improving the sleep, which also, by the way, helps boost the immune system, diminishing a lot of the joint and muscle pain. Happens to me all the time because it's it helps with the inflammation. It brings it down. Inflammation is what causes pain. And then anxiety. It lowers people's anxiety. It is a fantastic product. Everything we have at DMLCBD.com is fantastic, but the DML CBD mints right now are the one product that we have left that's on BOGO. With that said, also, if you bought anything on my birthday, August 28th, you would have gotten a coupon. That coupon code ends on October 31st. If you don't have the coupon code, email Ashley, ASHLEY, Ashley at DMLCBD.com. Ask for the coupon code. She'll help you. It gives you 20% off on anything on our website. So that's Ashley, ASHLEY at DMLCBD.com. Happens to be my daughter. Send her, hey, I can't find my coupon code. She'll give you the coupon code. You put the coupon code at checkout. You save 20% on everything that's there. That's the last coupon code that we're going to wind up having for the entire year here. So you're going to want to do it. You know, if you're sitting there and you're looking at your soft gels, or you're looking at your gummies, or you're looking at your DML CBD power, and you're like, I got about 4 or 5 left. Yeah, well, you may want to go in right now and buy a 3-pack or a 10-pack and use that 10%, that 20% code, because you're not going to wind up having these kind of specials again for many months. Many months. I'm not kidding. We are hurting in terms of the supply chain nonsense going on. That's that. All right, that's it for me. Until the next time, may God bless you, our troops, this country, this amazing country. It's still kicking. Your entire family, and Dr. Malone for being brave and courageous and saying it as it needs to be said. That's it for me. Ta-ta.
This podcast is produced by Anita Griffey, Lori McLean, and yours truly. And you could subscribe by going to the Apple Podcasts page and search for Dennis Michael Lynch Podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Or you can download the DML News app from the Google Play Store for Android phones and the Apple App Store for iPhones. And do not forget to visit our sponsor, DMLCBD.com, so this way you can feel great again.